What's up, guys? Ben here bringing you another video. Guys, we're finally starting to get some roster news. So we're going to go ahead and talk about a new roster that is forming. I'm wearing a Minnesota ROKKR shirt, so as you can take a guess, we're going to talk about ROKKR's new team. We're also going to talk about an interesting tweet I saw from a Deserto writer yesterday, and then wrap that up with some final thoughts. So let's dive in. So last night, or if you're Crone, the guy who wrote this article early in the morning, New Zealand time, Crone reported that we've finally gotten a sense of what Minnesota is going to do in their situation. And it looks like they have won the services back of Dylan Attach, and he will resign, and he's bringing a few superstars with him. Cammy is coming over from Toronto, supposedly, and they are also winning the sweepstakes on London Royal Ravens standout Afro. Chrome kind of hedges a little bit here on who the fourth is. He says he hadn't heard who it was, but he had suspected that it was Bance. But Jacob Hale over at Deserto did reply later that night that he also kind of heard it was Bance, so I'm thinking that this is your four right here. So let's talk about this squad. You know, for me, I think ROKKR's biggest shortcoming last year, if you take a look at the stats, was hardpoint. I mean, looking at this table, you rank all the teams, they were third to last. Only Toronto Ultra was worse, and obviously Paris. And I think it's important because you look at the context of their other game modes, like they were not a bad team. Yes, obviously they didn't qualify for champs, so I think your bar there is, you know, whatever. But you look at these stats, and they were doing a pretty good job in game fives, in some of the middle maps in the series, but 40% in game one's not gonna cut it, and less than 50% in game four, which means about half the time, if you're getting to this point, you're probably either getting forced to game five or you're losing 3-1. I think in general, this team needed to get better at hardpoint. And by the way, it's not just a one-year problem. These are stats from the second year of the CDL. Shout out my boy Turtle. Again, hardpoint, and look where ROKKR are. 28 and 41. Only Paris, obviously the weak London team last year in LAG, and we know how good the LAG team was at hardpoint. We're worse than them last season. And you might say, oh, Ben, didn't they win an event? Well, the one event they won was the event where they played good in hardpoint. Because in stage one, they were 2-7. This is the second year of CDL. Stage two, 500. 3-8 stage three, 5-8 stage four. The event they did win, they were 9-7 in stage five, and they got top four at champs, and they went 3-4 in the game mode. So for about a year and a half now, and I think you could even probably extend this if you really wanted to go back, like if we wanted to sort of really step out. Like we could also take a look at the half a year, the first year of CDL after COVID hit, after the team really digressed. So they haven't been that good at hardpoint for almost 2.5 years. So they needed to build a team that was very good at respawn. So let's take a look at the team that they built. Shout out to my boys at Breaking Point for this website. I think this is gonna be rolling out to the Breaking Point website soon. It's a little tool I think they were gonna embed on their website. They would let you build a roster so you can see the stats wise. And I think the first thing that strikes out to me on paper looking at this team is this is a great situation for Attach and Cammy for one in the remain. I assume that Dylan's, aka Attach, is gonna be the one running main on this one, and Cammy will be more of the flex player. I like the speed of that team. You look at some of the interaction numbers. I really like some of the hill time numbers I see from Afro and Cammy. I expect Attach's numbers probably in the hill will probably need to be a little bit higher going next year, but we won't really, you know, at this point, it's kind of hard to say how Modern Warfare is gonna play. There have been years in the past where you really want your subs to push out, so your ARs are kind of soaking hill. We're in those sort of neutral transition situations. Obviously, Ben's numbers, aka Bance's numbers, aren't as good as the other three, but Ben's not on the team to really drop a 1-1 here. Obviously, that would be nice. But Ben's job is to really provide the backbone, the leadership on this team, to do what he normally does, really pace set the game and kind of have it come to him, play corners. And he's not really going to be like that aggressive push-out player. You got Afro for that. You got Cammy for that. You're kind of chilling there. S&D with this team, I think, will be interesting. I don't know if they're going to be as good of an S&D team as some of the past Minnesota teams. I think we saw that Bance and Cammy have been a part of really good S&D squads over the last few years. Same with Dylan, because obviously all the versions of the teams with Mike, Major Maniac, were very good. So I like the potential for this team to sort of play different ways in S&D. Don't strike me as a one-note S&D team, but we'll have to see chemistry-wise how that goes. And obviously, we don't really know if Control's a third game mode yet. I haven't heard anything about third game mode, but hypothetically, this team's probably solid in Control. A lot of players are very good at playing out, playing their lives, knowing when to stack and play off each other. Look, to me, like my final thought on this Minnesota roster, first off, this was probably very expensive to build. Cammy was definitely not free coming from Toronto, and I expected that was some kind of six-figure buyout. Attach and Afro were both free agents, so in order to get them to sign, they probably had to commit quite a few bucks to those guys. Something I'm thinking in the nice, probably low to mid six-figure range would be my guess. And I think Ben's probably the sneakiest get on this team. Ben's a very sought-after player because I think people recognize the reputation he has for really helping build some of these good teams and what he brings from a teammate perspective, from a leadership perspective. I think definitely in terms of like mental fortitude and dealing with adversity, I really like this version of this Minnesota roster compared to some of the other squads that they built over the last few years. Because again, I think what Minnesota's trying to do here and where they've been stuck the last few years is just being in the midfield of teams in the CDL. And to me, this is a team that might get them out of that point. Do I think that this team is potentially better than, say, whatever FaZe's going to build, or Thieves, or Optic? I'm not so sure. There's potentially on paper to do that, but I wouldn't say it's a guaranteed lock taking a look at this lineup. But I think if you're Minnesota, legitimately, this is probably the best roster you could have built in Rostermania. We're talking about getting free agents and making a team that makes sense. This is probably the best situation that they could have put together. So I'm excited to see if this team is locked and we do get announced and this is the one to go. I'm excited to watch this Minnesota team going into next season. Let's talk about one more situation here just to wrap up the video. I saw this tweet yesterday. This is also tweeted last night in regards to Insight and the situation on Toronto. So Jacob Hale, again, he's a writer for Discerto, well-sourced, so I think anything he says is very reputable. Said that from his understanding, a lot of teams are interested in Jamie, aka Insight, but he is contracted under Toronto, and they're not going to be willing to sell him because they really need to build around him. So right now, like if we take a look at Toronto's team, this is a squad that they are right now looks like they're going to run for next season. I would say that this was a potential destination for some free agents, but with Minnesota getting attached in Afro, Cammy leaving, the only other way I see a major shakeup here is if Toronto's going to go out and buy another player or they win the Hydra sweepstakes. So if I'm Jamie and I have like better teams potentially asking to join my squad and I look at this team, I'm not saying that I don't have faith in my Toronto team, but I'm definitely thinking about it. And it gets even more interesting if you think about it from this perspective, right? So I talked about this on my stream back before champs when I was building the player contracts doc. And if you take a look at this, of all the players listed here, they all technically did have a team option. Obviously Ben Vance, they're letting go and they're keeping Cam around. RFA, UFA is more terminology, but they legit had all these guys signed last year. So my point with Jamie Insight is this. He's on the back end of a 2-year deal, right? He signed a new deal last year. He's got this deal upcoming for this year. And then theoretically, if he doesn't sign an extension, he is a free agent in the upcoming offseason. So if you're Insight and you're getting offers, and if you're Toronto and you're hearing about Insight getting offers, I think if you're Toronto, the first thing you're trying to do is lock down this guy to a new deal. That increases the potential asking price if you do need to move on from him, but you also lock into services. Now you can offer 3-year deals. This is an interesting situation to watch unfold. It can go in one of two ways, I think. Option A is either Jamie or Toronto uses this to try and get an extension. I think Insight probably has the most leverage in the situation because he can go to Toronto and say, I'm a little unhappy. I'm not going to sign a new deal. I'm going to test free agency in the upcoming season. And he can either use that to get a better extension offer, or we'll get to option B, which is he can try and do a little bit of an NBA superstar, KD, James Harden, Ben Simmons thing and try and get out of a situation in Toronto, but it's not going to be able to do that, I think, privately. You know, we've seen the past of this Toronto team, like they will go to great lengths in these situations. Like, so I think if Insight really wanted to leave, if he got a big team offer, I think he'd probably have to make it a public thing and make it public that he wanted to leave. And then I don't know what Toronto would do at that point. I assume they're going to drag it out. They're a little stuck though, because again, the roster going next season really needs Insight. Like they can't sit here and just bench him. And so again, I think watch the situation with Insight, because if he does try and leave, it opens up a lot of potential paths in Rostermania and it may become a very public thing. And I'll be very curious to see what Toronto will do. So that's it for this video, guys. Let me know what you think of the Minnesota team. I really like it. Do you guys agree? Where would you rank it 1 out of 10? Is there maybe another player you would like to see on that roster? Let me know and I'll reply in the comments with my thoughts. And what do you think of the Insight situation? Should he stick? Should he go? There are a lot of potential teams I could see him, or destinations I could see him going to make teams better. And these are all teams that I think have money to potentially buy him out. Do you think he would be able to pull off a move? Do you think he should stick around? Let me know what you guys think. If you liked the video, obviously smash that like button. And if you love my content, please subscribe. We continue to pump out new videos as Rostermania keeps heating up and as the season gets going. And as always, guys, we will see you on the next one.